Political like this, do it. I see too much hate. Nothing because democracy. Not do it. Dividing and continuously. Once you step in the arena, life not is there. Once you step for your color, ready to kill your credibility. It's time we speak. The open policy. Oh, it's a mystery. Too much happening in politics. We shall no, no, no. We just don't know. We shall no, no, no. Yes, I shall. Totalization of your privacy. Once you announce your candidacy, I wonder, is that what the life for me? Oh, system must have a way to recognize of the majority. We have to dream what would my future be. These are what I get better man. No poison, there's an upset quality to the sea, but it's more than from the carpet that is guilty. This political climate, do it, I see too much hate. Nothing because democracy, not do it, dividing and continuously. Once you step in the arena, life not is there. Once you step for your color, ready to kill your credibility. It's time we speak. The open policy. Oh, it's a mystery. Too much happening in politics. We shall no, no, no. We just don't know. We shall no, no, no. It's not so. No, listen. All candidates must have expectation to win that seat in election. No direction from California to politicians. To face an unforgiving electorate where one ballot can decide your fate. Living is struggling to put food on your plate. Run, we have done so much. Take me over power. If you want to hear your family make weak, it's a topic you see. This political contest, I see too much hate. Nothing we call democracy, so it's dividing and continuously. Once you step in the arena, life not is there. Once you step for your color, ready to kill your credibility. It's time we speak. The open policy. Oh, it's a mystery. Too much happening in politics. We shall no, no, no. We just don't know. We shall no, no, no. It's not so. Woo! Yes,
What's happening, man? Boy, boo play in the afternoon, sounding good. Let's take a few more minutes of boo play before we start the program, man. Let's enjoy boo play for a minute here. The late great boo play, Michael Lafleur.
My good friend Charles, you know to Dominica. First time in a long time.
It's Q now to 5 in the afternoon.
I don't know why he vexed with man like Hunter. Is with me choose to line. Everywhere we went, he got disappointment upon disappointment. So he stood on the pavement and he began to vent. It is Dominican American.
Uh-huh.
What the lovely beast, man. What I see in there, I can't find in Dominica.
Oh, really?
Just like Canada and America. It's only grapes and apples I see selling everywhere. Yo, kids, no
Right now. Right now. Clear as crystal. The boy had a voice, boy.
Well, had I done? Not the baby days now. Getting. Really? He said he know the labor between workers and labor and taxi Gatoka. He said those fellas, they don't like Dominica. It's what they do in there. Without agriculture, we have nothing to offer. We come like a beggar. An old banana farmer.
Hey, Miss Bella's on the hill. How are you doing today?
What the heck is this, man? What I see
Now you're claiming cousin.
I got banana in Dominica, just like Canada and America. It's only grapes and apples I see selling everywhere. Yo, kids, no banana. Banana. Well, banana. And the diaspora. No banana. The books are like kids, don't make banana. And this is kind of nonsense. It's something the books are like that.
For the West Indies fans, huh?
After all one match,
Pakistan won the test by 8 wickets.
he can start from the story by agriculture and bring back
So
banana.
the series is now 1-1, huh?
But the diaspora, see, bala, they keep in their labor. No, the people from La Plaine will stop on so for yeah, Mamo and Lola. And the rest of Dominica, see the suspect is over there, that making them afraid to protest for banana. Really? What the lovely piece, man. What I see in there, I can't find a right banana in Dominica. Just like Canada and America, it's only grapes and apples I see selling everywhere. Yo, kids, no banana.
I am making your afternoon with that one, huh? You don't even have to eat this afternoon. Are you rocking on your rocking chair? You really believe that, huh? Keep book salad, huh? Somebody wanted to hear that song again and again and again and again. All right, I'll do a few more minutes for you. I'll do a few more minutes for you, okay? I heard you. We'll kick off the talk on the block in a minute, huh?
Play. What's happening, man? My good friend Carl came down to Dominica, first time in a long time. I don't know why he vexed with man like Hunter. Is with me choose to line. Everywhere we went, he got disappointment upon disappointment. So he stood on the pavement and he began to vent. It is Dominican American. What a lovely beast, man. What I see in there, I can't find Dominica. Just like an America.
Enough. Oh boy, when you just began to enjoy the calypso, huh? Many years ago, he sang, boy, before you can kneel down and pray. You're listening to Matt Peltier. Remember that business calypso competition many years ago? These were his words, huh? Before you can kneel down and pray, you're listening to Matt Peltier. Who play? You'll miss, my brother. Hey, Florida with love, good afternoon to you. You're loving it, huh?
The hurricane season is upon us. Check on your neighbors, especially the elderly and those with disabilities. We're stronger together, so lend a helping hand when you can.
If your home and business is in a mess, you need a cleaning agent that knows you can. It's the clean disinfect, deodorize, you sanitize. Long-lasting fragrance refreshes your entire home. You're thinking of cleaning chrome and porcelain, polyester and stainless steel. An agent that keeps it real and that's fact. Not forgetting your clothes, sheets, and all fabrics. The fabric's often the extreme power. Ironing easier and faster. So clean, clean with the best. Just to clean and learn back. Broken wall, clean with the best. Kitchen tiles and cabinets. The Green Panda and that distributed by Time, sold island-wide.
Madam Boboy Madi, Laukali, Idipoti Brights and Company. Yele Rice and Company, the only company I know with Brights was cooking motor and back and neck. Now with the last valley short, I said Brights. In the old plus nefla where you have a roofing material and seamless guttering. Yes, 24 gauge governors, all colors. Ever open Nipugas Agent, they program the computer to give you the exact size you want. And the seamless guttering aluminum that can better withstand the elements you have in an easy way. So no leaking after a while. And so much more. Brights and Company, the by 8 bank close to the old mill at Enfield. Telephone 617-2468.
See $1,000 in prizes with over 390 chances to win. Enjoy daily and weekly rewards, including scholarship packages, tablet bundle, handset bundle, power bundle, and so much more. Want to qualify? Easy. Simply pay your bill in full and on time.
Oh, KFC. Oh, KFC. Looking for some place to go. Meals for soul. KFC. Grab your family and your friends. Join in the experience. KFC. It's the place to be. Made for you and me. KFC. KFC. It's finger licking good.
Of course, yesterday you heard the Minister of Finance, Irvin McIntyre, presenting a $1.159 billion budget to Parliament. As the government of Dominica presented its national budget to Parliament, reducing or removing several tax measures, which it said would cost the Treasury an estimated $43.5 million. I quote, "This budget has been prepared in that spirit, not fear, but foresight, not retreat, but readiness, not surrender to uncertainty, but a decision to give Dominican households, workers, and businesses greater control over their future," McIntyre told Parliament. In his more than 2.5-hour delivery of the fiscal package, he said, and I quote, "This budget is a covenant between this government and the people of Dominica."
Is that it has said to Dominicans that we're going to have to do more for ourselves, by ourselves, using our own talent, using our own resources, using what we have available to us to create greater wealth for ourselves and to let Dominica be the best place to live, work, and recreate. It's a very, very well thought of budget. I mean, the relief of the customs, they're moving away from the compounded nature. That's something that I have had issue with, and many Dominicans have had issue with. Placing the tax on the tax, on a tax on a charge. And certainly that should see a direct positive impact on the price on the shelves and on how importers sell goods to us as Dominican citizens, because you're going to have a drop. And then, of course, the income tax, moving away from the 15 and the 20 and the 45 rates and introducing a single rate is something to have advocated for many years. People know that I'm not an income tax person, but you have to do it in a responsible way.
Following the country's economic recovery and our successful completion of the IMF-supported program, from 2009, government began providing meaningful income tax relief. We reduced the tax rates to 15%, 25%, and 35%. We also increased the tax-free threshold first to 25,000 and then to 30,000. We increased mortgage deductions from 15,000 on one property to 30,000 and 15,000 on a first and second property respectively. We allowed deductions for student loans, home, and medical insurance. All of these have reduced the income tax burden on workers and removed thousands of Dominicans from the income tax net. Mr. Speaker, this allows families to retain a greater share of their income. Today, despite a global environment, macroeconomic uncertainty, this government will again provide relief to further empower the hardworking people of Dominica. It is therefore my pleasure to propose that effective January 1, 2027, the government will replace the income tax rates of 15%, 25%, 35% with a single flat rate of 10%. This is a sacrifice the government is making. It is the most significant income tax relief ever granted to the people of Dominica. It will deliver meaningful savings to workers and make our tax system simpler and fair.
I think it is a budget of the times and for the times. I mean, the world is a very difficult place. So many external shocks that countries like ours are facing with. I think the budget has sought to respond to this, respond to the issue of cost of living, respond to the issue of economic development and diversification in a very challenging world. And what the budget has done is that it has said to Dominicans that we're going to have to do more for ourselves, by ourselves, using our own talent, using our own resources, using what we have available to us to create greater wealth for ourselves and to let Dominica be the best place to live, work, and recreate. It's a very, very well thought of budget. I mean, the relief of the customs, they're moving away from the compounded nature. That's something that I have had issue with, and many Dominicans have had issue with. Placing the tax on the tax, on a tax on a charge. And certainly that should see a direct positive impact on the price on the shelves and on how importers sell goods to us as Dominican citizens, because you're going to have a drop. And then, of course, the income tax, moving away from the 15 and the 20 and the 45 rates and introducing a single rate is something to have advocated for many years. People know that I'm not an income tax person, but you have to do it in a responsible way.
Somebody says here, and of course, you're free to call and give your own assessment of what you think the budget presented yesterday. A lot of reaction there via WhatsApp. That's a liar's budget. Number one. Two, where's the money coming from? Is it some money hidden in foreign banks coming to save Scarrett? Three, am I hearing Mr. Linton and Thompson ideas which these guys can't deliver? Or they lack the ability to execute? And if you don't believe me, ask the NEP workers. I'm getting from a lot of opposition supporters who say now it seems clear that they took a lot of ideas on board with respect to port charges and income tax. So, Mr. Thompson Fontaine, take a bow if they actually took some of your ideas on board. So now the Prime Minister is quoting Lennox, best place to live and best place to work. Enjoy life. I guess it depends, huh? Matt, another financial consultant says to me, Matt, this 10% flat income tax is where policies show how lazy and unimaginative that government is. They put no work in determining the equity. They just put a blanket percent for all. So the more you earn, the better you come. You come out. And guess what? The new taxes, they will never mention that part. But every dollar they give, they must find a way to get it back. on consumption will result in those early poor, in those already poor, having to pay more. Those underemployed or unemployed will carry more indirect taxes. So people under 30,000 who already do not pay income tax, or those who are unemployed, will now have to pay higher consumption taxes, more indirect taxes, as Carrot and McIntyre pulled the wool over the eyes of Dominicans. Just watch and see, wait and see. It's okay, sir. Reading and presenting the 1 billion point 2 budget is all good. However, when it's positively impacting the households in all corners of Dominica, that's what will matter. Wasn't Mr. Clarence Christian criticizing Mr. Fontaine when he said if you'd have a 10% tax bracket and lower, Mr. Clarence Christian, you'll have to call and defend yourself. I will try to get into Mr. Thompson because some of the ideas presented in that budget actually came from him. So it's a good sign that everybody's listening, huh? And notice that the tax freedom will come as of January 1st next year. So don't believe that you're going to get this tax-free from this month. No, it's going to come January 1st next year. Elections will be close to that date, so it can be used as an election gimmick. Somebody suggesting. It seems that these rogues posting as government are taking people for the fool. A 10% flat rate on all salaries will only benefit those on bigger salaries. Where's the equity and inequality? Matt, reducing income tax is a good idea, but what about tax return for 2024-25? They owe me, and up to now, every time. I call, it's not ready, it's not ready, it's not ready. And when it's to take, government wastes no time. But when it's to pay, it's problems. Again, let's listen to Mr. McIntyre. And we have economist Mr. Joshua Francis, who has studied the presentation and is here to give his own feedback. Remember, January 1 will be when you'll start seeing the goodies, huh? I wonder why they waited that long. Somebody suggested, well, election may be down the road, so
Following the country's economic recovery and our successful completion of the IMF supported program, from 2009, government began providing meaningful income tax relief. We reduced the tax rates to 15%, 25%, and 35%. We also increased the tax-free threshold first to 25,000 and then to 30,000. We increased mortgage deductions from 15,000 on one property to 30,000 and 15,000 on a first and second property respectively. We allowed deduction for student loans, home, and medical insurance. All of these have reduced the income tax burden on workers and removed thousands of Dominicans from the income tax net. Mr. Speaker, this allows families to retain a greater share of their income. Today, despite a global environment marked economic uncertainty, this government will again provide relief to further empower the hardworking people of Dominica. It is therefore my pleasure to propose that effective January 1, 2027, the government will replace the income tax rates of 15%, 25%, 35% with a single flat rate of 10%. This is a sacrifice the government is making. It is the most significant income tax relief ever granted to the people of Dominica. It will deliver meaningful savings to workers and make our tax system simpler and fair.
I think it's a budget of the times and for the times. I mean, the world is a very difficult place. So many external shocks that countries like ours are facing with. I think the budget has sought to respond to this, respond to the issue of cost of living, respond to the issue of economic development and diversification in a very challenging world. And what the budget has done is that it has said to Dominicans that we're going to have to do more for ourselves, by ourselves, using our own talent, using our own resources, using what we have available to us to create greater wealth for ourselves and to let Dominica be the best place to live, work, and recreate. It's a very, very well thought of budget. I mean, the relief of the customs, they're moving away from the compounded nature. That's something that I have had issue with, and many Dominicans have had issue with. Placing the tax on the tax on a tax on a charge, and something that should see a direct positive impact on the price on the shelves and on how importers sell goods to us as Dominican citizens, because you're gonna have a drop. And then of course the income tax moving away from the 15 and the 20 and the 45 rates and introducing a single rate is something to have advocated for many years. People know that I'm not an income tax person, but you have to do it in a responsible way.
now another finance person is suggesting here, man, I agree with Skerritt to continue squeezing the poor people, not because they deserve it, but because too many seem resigned to accepting whatever is handled to them or handed to them without asking who truly benefits. The 10% flat rate of flat tax provides no direct relief to persons earning $30,000 or less. Yet many of the very people excluded from the benefit are celebrating as though it improves their circumstances. So the finance people who understand taxes, are saying, as I said, this 10% flat income tax is where policies show how lazy and unimaginative the government is. They put no work in determining equity. They just put a blanket 10% for all. So the more you earn, the better you come out. And guess what? The new taxes will never mention that part. But for every dollar they give, they must find a way to get it back. And consumption will result in those already poor having to pay more. Those unemployed or underemployed will carry more indirect taxes. So people under 30,000, as somebody else was suggesting here, who already do not pay income tax, or those who are underemployed will now have to pay higher consumption taxes, more direct taxes, as Skerrit and McIntyre just pulled the wool over the eyes of Dominicans. Just wait and see. Let's say good afternoon to economist and political leader of the United PPP. How you doing?
United Progressive Party, Mr. Pelty. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, thank you. And how are you?
I'm doing okay.
Great.
I'm observing.
Yes, and what have you observed?
I see you spend your night combing through the budget, Joshua.
Well, actually not. I was hoping that I would, but I did not.
No?
No, I did not.
So you just picked up the salient points?
I picked up the salient points. I wish if I had the time to go through the budget address word by word.
Okay.
Unfortunately, yesterday I was harbored with legal work. Likewise, last night. Consequently, it was not possible to go through the entire budget address. But nonetheless, I made some time just about an hour ago to scan through the budget address and
your first
to
impression,
extract.
Your first impression is?
My first impression, this is just another ordinary budget.
Ordinary
budget.
I see the labor rights at the government DLP celebrating.
Well, as usual, the budget really is worthy as far as the address is concerned, but in terms of fiscal and monetary substance, it is very empty. And contrary to the Prime Minister's statement, it's a budget for the times. I strongly disagree. This budget does not provide any hope for Dominicans, particularly in a times and in the face of adversity concerning the fact that our CBI program, on which this government relied heavily, is on its deathbed. As we know, as of the 1st of June 2028, the European Union will no longer entertain us as far as entry into their union without a visa. And of course, the viability.
As you say that, though, I'm just reading there, and I think it came from the budget as well, presented by the what's a newspaper there? I think. Let me see if I can get that. Yeah, Nature Isle News. And in that budget, I think they defended the CBI government already, saying that it's the Citizens by Investment Program, saying it's played a significant role in socio-economic development of the island since it was first introduced here decades ago. Would you disagree with that?
Well, we cannot disagree with that fact. The government has been very lazy. The government has shown a lack of innovation, and the government has relied exclusively on CBI to make up for as much as 60% or more for meeting government recurring expenditures. In other words, CBI has been a very significant contributor to government's revenue or to public sector revenue. And our over-reliance on CBI now has put us in a place where if we are not careful, as they say in local palace, we have to tie our waist. And that is why I believe this budget did not prepare Dominica for what appears to be ahead. Rough times. Because as the volume of citizenships, the sale in the volume of citizenship, Dominican citizenship drops, it means that we'll be earning less revenue as a country. And this budget by no means and measure provided
it's clear,
a cushion.
It's clear, Joshua, it's clear from your interpretation, of course, and your following of CBI over the years. They did something for the country. What you saying?
Well, yes, of course, Matt. I mean, the government used CBI revenues to support its housing program, as it was dubbed the housing revolution in Dominica. Of course, there's a big debate as to whether that helped Dominica or it did not.
You see,
And
but
then
the priorities were wrong.
well, some of the priorities were wrong. I think the CBI revenues could have been used more in productive sectors in Dominica. We would have been in a better place. The CBI revenues could have been used to diversify our economy. That did not happen. As I said, there has been an over-reliance on the mere sale and receipt of those proceeds. And unfortunately, most of those proceeds were directed towards the construction of hotels. And of course,
homes,
now
housing.
we have, well, you had the wellness centers, the social housing. You now have the construction of the international airport. We then have this cable car project, as well as the marina. Areas that we need to really explore for us to go beyond the surface. Of course, we know those projects have been financed by the CBI program, but there is a very dark area that most Dominicans have not appreciated as far as those projects are concerned. But this afternoon, I really want us to look at this budget. I want us to look at certain areas because, of course, it is not possible for us to go through the entire budget presentation. We do not have the benefit of the estimates for the respective ministries and sectors. But based on the policy positions, based on what has been proposed.
I'm hearing very early there.
Yeah.
Somebody suggests that the Prime Minister's office is getting the largest portion of the pie.
Well, that's expected because the Prime Minister, as Minister of Investment, would be responsible for the affairs concerning the construction of the international airport, the marina, and this cruise ship berth, which they spoke about. So naturally, one would expect more funding to be allocated to the Ministry of the Prime Minister for the purpose of managing the allocation of funding to those projects. As you know, the construction of the international airport alone is the largest capital project in the history of Dominica, so that naturally attracts a lot of money for this year's budget. But Matt, I want us to start off by looking where we are as a nation. Let's really assess Dominica from a macroeconomic point of view. Of course, Dr. McIntyre, gave some indication as to where we are as far as macroeconomic performance is concerned. And he said that Dominica has performed better than the other countries within the region. According to him, the Eastern Caribbean experienced an economic growth of about 3%, whereas Dominica experienced one for 3.5%. That was, he says here, Dominica's economic performance in 2025 exceeded both the global and ECCU averages, building on the 3.5% which was achieved in 2024. Dominica achieved a growth of 4.5% in 2025. That is 1.5% above the ECCU and global averages. And he went on to say the strong performance was driven by 18.3% increase in visitor arrivals alongside expansion in the construction, retail, and trade sectors. Where are we now? On paper, that sounds good, Matt. And one would believe that Dominica experiencing 4.5% economic growth for the last fiscal year would be in a better place. But the reality is that a country can experience economic growth without increase in employment opportunities. You call that zero employment economic growth. And it is expected that our economy would have expanded given the fact that government expenditure has increased considerably for the construction of the international airport, the marina, and some other capital projects which are well on their way. But the problem in Dominica is that those projects have not translated to improvement in the quality of lives for Dominicans. And that is the big question here. What is in this budget that ordinary Dominicans can benefit? What about this budget that will increase or improve our lives? That is a big question. But before we proceed to look at some of the proposals that are captured by this year's budget, as far as Dr. McIntyre's presentation is concerned, we have to look at where we are in different areas. Let's talk about debt to GDP ratio. There is an admission that Dominica's debt to GDP ratio is about 99.6%. Now, that is important, Matt. Now, why is that important? Because, of course, more a country is indebted, is more money it has to pay to its lenders. And we are talking about lenders both on the national, regional, and international stage. And monies that are used to meet financial obligations, such as paying loans, are monies that could be used in investment opportunities or expenditures opportunities to expand the economy. Dominica's debt to GDP ratio far exceeds that of the regional benchmark of 60%. We are way above, and that is critical. And according to the Minister of Finance, by 2030, hopefully that will decline. Again, that's not expected to decline significantly. And then he talks about a 2.2% in surplus as far as the budget is concerned, meaning that Dominica will attract more revenue than its expenditures, yet his presentation hasn't told us how that is going to be achieved. Because when you go through the budget address, you would hear and see those big numbers, but you cannot extract the ways in which government is going to generate those revenues. And of course, Matt, as we pointed out from the onset, where we are as a nation is like the banana period where there was monoculture. Right now, we have the CBI, the main income earner for the country, and clearly the CBI program is in ICU. And having said that, the big question that this budget was supposed to answer is supposed to answer is how are we going to make up for the shortfalls? And I don't see the answer in this presentation. And to me, that's my bigger concern.
So in other words, you don't see where the revenue is coming from.
That's the thing. Because if we have been so reliant as it is on the CBI, and now that we're going to be earning less from CBI, the question is how are we going to make up for the shortfalls? And this government has presented a number of suggestions or made certain proposals. When I walked in, you were discussing about this restructuring of the income tax system in Dominica, whereby the government has proposed a flat rate of 10%. And I heard that you read one or two comments from some of your listeners, and they're on point. When you listen about 10%, move from 30%, 35% to now 10% income tax, it sounds exciting. It sounds like a relief, but the question is, who are the people going to benefit from this? How many people are going to benefit? How many households are going to benefit from this?
The people who earn more.
Right. So let's look at that, Matt. Let's focus on that proposal first. Let me just turn to the pages here and get to that specific area, because like I say, we cannot possibly go through the entire presentation, but we're going to select certain areas to discuss. And let's look at the income tax relief for those persons who made a copy of the budget presentation. That would be on page 32. And the Minister of Finance here, of course, he gave an introduction. He speaks of what has happened to the income tax structure from since 2000, and he then comes to the year 2026, and he's saying that let me break it down further, Mr. Speaker. This measure will reduce the personal income tax burden of working residents whose income exceeds the 30,000 personal allowance, while those earning 30,000 or less will continue to pay no personal income tax. That's factual. The benefit is measured in money retained by worker each month and each year. Now, Matt, what does that mean? What does that mean? Is that anything? Is that going to really change the dial in Dominica? Is that going to have any major macroeconomic impact?
It doesn't appear that way.
It cannot appear that way, Matt, because as we speak, only just about 2,900 Dominicans paid income tax. We have a very small income tax base, which itself reflects where we are as a country as far as economic development is concerned. Then we have to take into consideration that the people who pay income tax are people who earn at least $2,550 thereabout. Because if you earn less than 30,000, it means that you would not be eligible to be paid income tax. So persons who earn more than $2,500 are persons who would be in the income tax bracket. Now that they are being told, or we are being told that, well, you do not have to pay 25, 30, or 35% anymore. You just pay a flat rate of 10%. How many of us are really going to benefit from this? And look at the example here. A person earning $4,000 monthly or $48,000 a year will retain an additional $75 each month or $900 a year. Now, Matt, take note of that. A person earning $4,000 monthly. Matt, how many Dominicans are earning $4,000?
Not many people at all.
Not many people. And then, so 10% flat rate, persons who are earning $4,000 a month will save $75 each month or $900 a year. Matt, that is not significant. You'd agree with me, right?
Of course.
How many households would possess at least one person earning $4,000 a month.
Not many.
Not many, Matt. Not many. And if a person is earning $5,000 a month or $60,000 a year, you're looking at a saving of $458 or $200 to $250. That is $208 each month. So you're looking just over $200 savings for somebody who earns $5,000 monthly. Again, that is not significant. How many persons are earning $5,000? As we go up the income bracket, the number of persons earning
It's less.
is lessens. That is correct, right? Now, let's look at the reality in Dominica, Matt. There are households where you do not even have somebody working. And then you have households where persons work on contracts. Then you have households where people are self-employed. You have households where persons are NEP workers and earning just about $550 monthly. And that includes poor people, sometimes single parents. So clearly, this tax proposal is not going to touch a majority of Dominicans. And that is factual. So as one of your commentators posted, persons are excited, not realizing there's nothing from this proposal that's going to benefit them.
They're excited about the announcement. They don't understand what's in there.
Right. So now that is from an individualistic point of view. Let's look at it from a macroeconomic point of view. Is that going to encourage spending? Now, Dominica's economy is not one that's really driven by consumption like the United States of America, where when Americans go out to shop and they spend a lot of money, the economy expands. Dominica's economy is a model based on government expenditure. So that savings that people are going to have, the question is, when they go out to spend, and you're looking at a small threshold of people, they go out to spend, they will go to save a lot. Some people take that monies and pay off a loan. Some people may take it and put in their savings. Whatever they do with it, that is not going to have any impact at all on the macroeconomic reality in Dominica. In other words, we're not going to see an expansion. We're not going to see excitement. We're not going to see buoyancy in the economy. We're not going to see any significant improvement. So it sounds good, it looks good, and of course, the persons who are going to benefit, people like me, I am happy to save $200, $300 a month, and we have to be grateful for a little blessings. But in context of where we are as a country, given that
the people that need to benefit.
Well, that is it, Matt, because maybe I should have started this program this afternoon by expanding on where we are as a nation. We are in a place where we have a labor force that is underemployed. So yes, some people are working, but they're really underemployed, meaning that they are earning less than they deserve. Most Dominicans get less than what they deserve. Our nurses, our doctors. Now keep in mind, we're looking at a public service where we have just over 3,000 established public servants. And interestingly, I was trying to gather some data, and I noted that there are more NEP workers than established public servants in Dominica, and that is by itself is very interesting. And the majority of these NEP workers get 6 months contracts, and they get less than $1,000 a month. That is where we are in Dominica. People who are working poor, people who are struggling, people who live from hand to mouth. And then as a country, we are very import oriented. This country is nowhere close to self-reliance because, again, this government did not set up an economic model to empower people so that they can focus on wealth creation. We are more in survival mode in Dominica. We have not created an environment where businesses can flourish, where households can enjoy a standard of living where they can create wealth, generational wealth. It's just a select few in Dominica who are in that sphere, but the majority of Dominicans are struggling. And then, Matt, when you look at Dominica from a macroeconomic point of view, we need to focus on the rural areas because the majority of Dominicans live in rural areas. And the fact is, under this government, the rural economies have been dismantled, have been destroyed. For many years, for decades, from lime to banana to cocoa to copra, the rural communities thrived on agricultural production. Under this government, what we have seen is a major departure of farmers from the fields. And because it's less production or no production in certain rural communities, We have had a complete disintegration of the rural economies.
Let-
That is where we are in Dominica now.
Let's take a break. Let's take a break. We'll come back. I'll show you some figures in the break. Take a-
Dio Kubule, Peta Nukabwe, Dio Kubule, Peta Mulekwe, Hele Kubule, Luka Chedebo, Selma Kubule, Pate Angi Onko, Bakalache, 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 Dio Noebe Kubule, Bakalache, 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 Dio Noebe Kubule, Bakalache, 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 Noebe Kubule, Bakalache, 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 Nukabwe Kubule. Drink responsibly.
Madam Boboy Madi, Laukali, Idipoti Rice and Company. Yele Rice and Company, the only company I know with rice was cooking water and back and neck. Now with the last valley short, I said Bryce. In the old the plus nefla where you have a roofing material and seamless guttering. Yes, 24 gauge governors, all colors. Ever open Nipu gas peel agent, they program the computer to give you the exact size you want. And the seamless guttering aluminum that can better withstand the elements you have in an easy way. So no leaking after a while. And so much more. Bryce and Company, the app by 8 bank close to the old mill at Enfield. Telephone 617-2468.
Mabrika, you are cordially invited to join the #1 cultural radio show in the Caribbean, Creole Headbit, on Friday, August 7th from 10:30 a.m. on the next station Q95 FM for a powerful and inspiring conversation celebrating our distinguished Kalinago people, special guests, prominent Kalinago chief, and its unfold, and a team. The discussion will examine and explore how the Kalinago territory can build on World Indigenous Day, the Manioc Festival, and Kalinago Week to strengthen cultural preservation, expand indigenous tourism, create international partnerships, and position Dominica as the indigenous heartbeat of the Caribbean. These celebrations can do more than preserve culture. They can inspire global movement around the world. There are hundreds of millions of indigenous people. It's connected by a shared commitment to preserve their history, traditions, and identity. Could the Kalinago territory become a place where the cultures connect, learn from each other, and celebrate their shared heritage? This is more than a celebration of culture. It is a conversation about vision, opportunity, and creating a lasting legacy for future generations, while inviting the world to experience the authentic spirit of the Kalinago people. Host Ambassador Prince Leroy Maddox Chance, and will be live on Q95 Facebook page and YouTube channel. Kalinago Chief and its important team this Friday, August 7th from 10:30 a.m. on Creole Habit on Q95, the big station. Discover the culture, celebrate the people, embrace the heritage. Dominica, the indigenous habit of the Caribbean.
All you, I just made goal winning.
All right, Dominic, we're back. We're exploring the budget presented to Parliament yesterday. Let's take a few calls. We'll come back to Joshua for another segment in a minute. Hello, talk to me, yes?
Yes. Good afternoon, Matt, to your listeners and Joshua in the studio.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Matt, I would like to add my voice on the budget discussion you have there today. And like always, Matt, sometimes we have to have this conversation, because if you don't elevate ideas, if you don't have that critical thinking, if you don't increase the level of our analysis of this budget, then Dominicans are left holding a big stick. I want to agree with a lot of what Joshua said, and I pointed that out before. First of all, for the last few years, I want to say it sounds like our government is also involved in propaganda in our parliament. And I'll tell you why, Matt. For an observing eye, we would have heard for the past 10, 15 years, if not CBI, then what? So that tells me we've had a bunch of people. And I'm not saying that. That's what I heard Rosalind Paul, Ian Douglas, a lot of ministers said. So what it's telling me is they don't have any ideas or any other solutions for the development of the economy in Dominica. So if you have ideas election cycle, what that means is I'm going to put plans in place, not for the short-term re-election of my government, but for the development of the country. And you and I know if you're developing a place, it takes 10, 15, 20, 25 years. And if you're creating plans for a society, sometimes you have to have a 100-year plan. Matt, why am I saying that? It's because if you have a budget, what you put in the budget should reflect your short-term, mid-term, and long-term development plan for the country. Now, if that government was in office from a recent election, I would have given them an excuse, but the point is they've been there for 20-something years, and they have told us over and over, if not CBI, then what? So here comes the reason why I say it's propaganda, because apparently the Minister of Finance is taking everybody in Dominica for fools. If you have told us that you have no other option but CBI, and we all know that the CBI funds are doing it. We all know there are issues with the CBI. How then do you give people a tax break without explaining what that's for? You don't just tax people for taxing them state because you were the government of the country, and the reason you're taxing people is because that's part of the procedure. But the government collects funds, and one of the main ways it collects funds is from sales tax, income tax, and from taxes from manufacturing and export and import, right? So therefore, those taxes are not just put in blindly. They are put in because you have expenses, and Joshua mentioned recurring expenditures, your salaries for your policemen, your nurses, government employees, operational maintenance, and all this things. And I'm talking off my head and I'm not reading for you, right?
Okay.
So when you tax people, the reason you go to parliament, because if you taxing me, you're going to tell me why you added extra taxes to me. Why should I pay extra taxes? And where are these tax revenues going to go? And to ensure that what you say is where it's going to be used. For example, if the government is going to build an international airport and it's going to tax people, it has to go to parliament, because once you go to parliament, there's a legal responsibility to ensure if you pass the budget for taxes for a particular activity, you cannot then go in the middle of the year and apply those taxes to somewhere else. So similarly, if you're reducing taxation, there should be a fiscal reason for doing that. Is it because there's another source of revenue? Is it because we are reallocating taxes? And from what I'm hearing, there is you take away income tax, but then you increase in fees and other costs somewhere else. But that's still a tax on the population. So let me make the distinction. You have a salary, you get taxed on that. However, if you increase that, that's a tax on the sale of goods and services. So while you reduce income tax with the few people working, and if you increase that, who pays that in Dominica?
But less than 3,000 people, maybe about 3,000.
All of us.
No,
all of
no.
us.
Oh, I mean, everybody pays. I thought
pays
it was going to income tax. Sorry about that. Yes, all of us pay.
Exactly. So everybody pays that. So you see where the manipulation gets in. So if they reduce income tax and increase VAT, and they say, oh, we reduce income tax, but we're not paying attention to the increasing VAT, that means there's a larger number of people to collect tax from through the VAT. So you have to explain to the people why now are you getting the additional charges. That is why the government is dishonest, because for government in office to tell me for the past 20 years it's not VAT, it's not CBI, then what? And now when CBI funds are dwindling, you are telling me decreasing income tax, then you have to explain to the people why were you charging me extra taxes all these years when you had CBN, and why was I paying extra percentage of tax for you to now reduce that taxation? And you have to provide people with that information. Matt, I don't want to take up, but here's the other issue. Did we increase manufacturing?
No.
Did we increase production? Exactly. Did we increase export so that you could say, okay, we've exported so much that we now have more revenue generated for export or for industrial and for private sector groups, which, by the way, they pay taxes. So then now we can reduce income tax. None of that has happened. Where is the statistic that show where we were and where we plan to go in the next 10, 20, 50 years? So every year you come with a budget. So you came with a budget last year. You know what the government does? They give their budget some fancy name to cover the BS they've been telling people. You know why, Marcel? Because if you are building a country, your budget this year should reflect the plans that you have done last year. And now you're growing this plan so that it can show dividends to the people of Dominica. That has not happened. So every year we get back to the same situation. And I keep telling you that all the time. Joshua mentioned it. There are countries, economies that grow when they have infrastructure development. So international airport, marina in Portsmouth. Let me give you a case example. You're building a marina in Portsmouth. You have an influx of cash flow construction. You have employment in Portsmouth. You have people renting your hotels and so on. Now, what that means is more people with money in their pocket. So they're going to spend money in the shops, in the restaurants, in the bars, and so on. What that's going to reflect, Marcel, is increasing consumption. So the shopkeeper during the construction of the marina is going to say, man, I instead of I used to sell 5 cases of beer a week, now I'm selling 20 cases of beer a week because there's more business. You know what that reflects, Marcel? That's going to reflect increase in tax revenues for the government coffers because now the shopkeeper is selling more produce. That is how the trickle-down economic works. Now he has so much people working on the international airport in Wesley. They're renting houses, they're buying fried chicken. We have consumption, increased consumption. That gets down to the farmer. The farmer is needing to provide more eggs. You can go to the bank and say, hey, you know what? There's a $1.something billion going on. I have more customers coming for eggs. I need a small loan so I can increase my farm production. I can get more eggs. I need to employ 1 or 2 people. That's what economic activity happens.
All right, we're going to take you out early because we have so many calls coming at this time. But just so you're going to go back to one point you were making earlier, you wanted to get across to.
Yeah, but before I even talk about the income tax situation, just a point that I would like that caller to take note of. And we must not discount the reality, Matt. We have to take into consideration global realities. We have to take into consideration the geopolitics, the shifting position of the United States of America towards Dominica and Antigua, and other geopolitical transitions and shifts that have taken place over the past few months. And that has naturally affected Dominica. You know, you call those exogenous factors, or as the Prime Minister likes to say, external shocks. So the budget would have to take into consideration the facts as they exist on the international platform. And for Dominicans, one of the major challenges that we have is the high cost of living. And this budget attempted to provide some kind of cushion, some kind of situation where the impact of the high cost of living would be lessened. But unfortunately, it has fallen short. It has fallen flat on its face. Because as we said earlier, this income tax restructuring really is going to influence just a few persons. What about the farmers, the fishermen, the carpenter, the plumber, the entrepreneur, this vendor on the market as we speak? We're just naming a few persons, both in the formal and informal economy, and they're not going to be benefiting from this. And then there's before I move on to the custom duties, another thing that we have to take note of, Matt, is when, as you pointed out earlier, when is that measure going to take effect? It is tabled. It is tabled to take measure
January
to be implemented. In January of 2027. Now the fiscal year ends June 30th, 2027. So we are looking at just 6 months. Now the government can maintain that measure, but it's likely that it could change at the next budget. So as we speak, for the purpose of the budget that has been presented, and all the estimates will be explored over the next few days, we are looking at just 5 to 6 months. Now, that 5 to 6 months benefit for those who are going to benefit from the.
But somebody is suggesting, Joshua. He says he's a former tax person, and it would be problematic. He says to implement the 10% before January. The tax year, January to December 2026, is already in motion, and the implementation now may result in a lot of refunds for people who would have paid regular rates January to August 2026. January 2027 is a reasonable, that's according to the tax person, start if you understand the taxes.
Yeah, and he's right. He's right, because you have to look at the administrative process, and he's on point. But that speaks to the fact that we are not in a position to really benefit. It's not going to expand the economy. It's not going to cause any major relief for our people, because we already stated, it's just a select few who are in that bracket. Majority of Dominicans
very little.
Yeah, and the thing about it, Matt, even when you save $250, what are you going to do with that? Are you going to put that towards a loan? And there are quite a number of Dominicans with bad loans, delinquent loans. So whatever that is saved, that may go to a loan. And if they are to spend it, they will go to a supermarket and probably move from chicken to fish, because that's another issue in Dominica. People do not eat very well, or they do not eat as well as they would like to, because they cannot afford the fish, they cannot afford certain vegetables. And those are the questions that we have to put into perspective for us to understand that this budget really will not save Dominica. It certainly will not. We were hoping that the budget would have provided answers to the question. The major question is, are we prepared to face the harsh economic time that is ahead of us? And the answer is no. So, Matt, as far as this income tax restructuring is concerned, I would say that it's not going to cause any major economic shift or financial shift in the lives of Dominicans. And again, Matt, well, in Dominica, we don't have that debate, but in a metropolitan country like the United States of America, we would talk about inequality of wealth, and the policy necessarily would drive those who are the highest income bracket and disempower those at the lower income bracket, because most of us are in the income lower bracket and we are not going to benefit, and those in the higher income bracket will benefit. But again, that's not really a major line of discussion here, because our labor force is small and our economy is not driven by consumption per se. You know, the government has been the main employer, and unfortunately, this government has not created an environment for the private sector to
But
grow.
everybody's getting your point, because somebody else is adding that I believe that the 10% income tax rate is going to be more beneficial to those who earn much more, like Skerrit and the ministers, and those whose salaries are at the higher end. I heard you ask why January 2027 for the implementation of 10%. I would think it's because the filing period, yes, somebody just pointed that out, it's from January 1st to December 31st. Therefore, I would not be in a possible. It would not be possible to begin at the third quarter of the year. Also, remember that Inland Revenue would have to make changes to forms, etc., for the next filing period. So, yes, the caller earlier was right, you did say that.
Yeah, yes, of course, and yeah, your call is on point, Matt. Another thing we have to take into consideration is that inflation continues to rise, and if this war in the Middle East prolongs, God knows what would be the price of a barrel of oil. So there's a possibility that energy costs may increase over the next few months. Supply chains may be affected, and as such, the price of goods on the international market may increase. Therefore, we will not be insulated from those. It means that those of us who are importing may have to pay more for those supplies. And that is the reality. So this budget attempting to show that it is concerned about Dominicans and is providing relief really is more fakery than reality.
Let's take a voice note there. Yes, hello. Yes.
Bon après-midi, Matthew.
Yes.
It's mon Dominic.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, the budget has me talking patois. Say our budget called Kione Moon budget. And it's more sounds like when you have a man that treated you bad or who treated you bad for years, and you finally made up your mind you're going to leave. Then he comes with all kinds of flattery and everything that he could not offer you during the relationship while he was treating you bad for all those years. He's offering it to you now, but you know it's more lies, more empty promises. Well, that is the kind of budget I heard. The budget that the finance minister called a covenant between government and the people of Dominica. Dr. McIntyre was the Minister of Health. He could not fix the our healthcare system. He could not fix the hospitals. He could not keep Dominicans from dying like flies through lack of healthcare. As a trained medical doctor, you're coming now to resuscitate the dead Dominica, a Dominica that Roosevelt Skerrit made sure he put it down on its knees. He killed the economy dead. You're coming as a medical doctor to resuscitate it, sir? And you talk about covenant. You understand what a covenant is now? Since when that regime know what a covenant is between government and Dominicans? Since when, after 26 years, that is not your modus operandi. You all have no respect for the Dominican people. And Dominicans are used to that unilateral contracts where they wind up with the nasty end, the burning end of the stick. They wind up with misery. They wind up under oppression. They wind up under poverty. That's what I heard is called a Keone Moon budget. That is what it is. It is not a budget of the times and for the times. Well, maybe Skerrit is right, because he knows that he's in hot water. So he's presenting that budget based on the current situation that we all know about. But you're talking about a budget of the times and for the times. What is our GDP now? What is Dominica exporting? Have we found gold or minerals in the Debwash Mountain that you have the Chinese decorated Skerrit? We now producing gold? I don't understand when the CBI that you killed agriculture to promote is now dead. You're talking about a $1.9 billion budget.
1.2, not 1.9, 1.2.
Agriculture is dead. The fishing industry is dead. We are not producing any kind of livestock. We don't have a livestock industry. You all have an abattoir there. What is it producing a year? What are you abattoiring? Nothing. We are not producing our own meats as a country. Our import bill is much higher than our export bill. You all have not told us by what percentage the import bill was cut by, and what percentage have you all increased the export bill. But you all are here talking about covenant and a budget of the times and for the times. You mean after 26 years, you're talking about a covenant and a budget of the times and for the times? We know that everything you say in that budget ain't gonna happen. We know it is also unilateral, because whenever you all pass a budget, you all have a habit of coming back with a supplementary budget, asking for more monies, even before you all do any work on most of the major projects. You all come back and ask for more money. And how is that unilateral? How is that covenant? It's unilateral. So we know what you're accustomed of doing. Even labor rights are fed up with those lies, yes? Labor rights are peeling away labor rights eyes are opening. We know that budget does not have anything for the Dominican people than more than Kione Moon to fool the people, because we know that you are not going to deliver. It's more empty promises, just like the campaign promises of the Labour Party. Thank you.
You were making the point earlier, Joshua. I have not noticed in that just the many presentations I've heard thus far in terms of where are we going to get the revenues? Now the CBI is gone. Where?
Yeah, and
from this 10%?
Well, Matt, not that CBI is gone. CBI is expected to go. We have been speculating.
There's light in the tunnel, Joshua?
Well, no, there's no light in the tunnel. I don't think that the steps that the European Union has taken, the United States of America, the UK, are reversible. I think they are irreversible. I think a change of president in the United States may cause a policy shift on visa restrictions in Dominica. But again, that is not certain. What we know is that the CBI program has been heavily contaminated due to abuse and corruption. And those countries have taken positions which are adverse to Dominicans. And sadly, this government has not prepared us for the harsh economic realities that are ahead. And this budget did not provide answers to the question. As a matter of fact, there are a couple of pages on the economic by citizenship program, and I will get to that. But I just want us to wrap up on this income tax restructuring that the government hailed as a relief platform for Dominicans. I strongly disagree with those who advocate that this measure will cause relief for Dominicans. It will not. Dominicans will continue to struggle, will continue to pay high prices for food on the shelves, and will continue to live from hand to mouth until we find answers to the many financial questions that this government has failed to answer. And Matt, we can then move on to the fact that the government says that it is giving a relief for about $43.5 million for the next fiscal year. And in all fairness, the government has to provide revenue to sustain its recurrent expenditures, meet its loan obligations, to mention a few. So the question is, how is the government going to make up for the shortfall? Now, in the presentation that Mr. McIntyre gave, we could not tell how this government is going to generate revenue to make up for the shortfall, except that we believe with the restructuring of the income tax, they're hoping that we will spend more. So those persons who are going to get that $250 credit monthly, hopefully will spend more and pay more VAT. So you call that a transactional tax system. So while this government has taken away from the income tax regime, they're hoping that we spend more and as such we pay more VAT. Consequently, it will get back into the coffers of the government. Yeah, and that is economics, because when people spend, naturally it's supposed to expand the economy if every other component of the economy remains constant. But as I said, we have a bottleneck economy because government is the main employer. And unfortunately, this government has made Dominicans heavily reliant on its arms and operations.
But to make the point, and somebody's making the point as well, you know, most Dominicans, let's get to the point. Most Dominicans don't even make $2,000.
But that's what we said earlier, Matt, because we're looking at persons who earn $2,500 plus. 2,500 plus. Those are the persons who have been paying income tax. And as I said, we're looking at about 3,000 Dominicans. So that's a very narrow tax-based system. So the government is going to lose about $11 million from income tax for the next fiscal year. Well, half of the fiscal year, because again, that's going to take effect from the 1st of January until the end of the fiscal year for 2026.
And the shortfall is $43.5 million.
As far as, yes, that is what the government, is saying that it's going to lose for the next fiscal year relative to last year's fiscal year. And that is why, from an economic point of view, To balance the budget, the question is, if everything else would stay the same, how are you going to make up for that shortfall?
As I'm telling you, where's the revenue coming from?
So that is why I suggested to you that one of the areas the government is expecting to get back that revenue is through
The spending?
is through transaction spending, both government expenditures as well as household expenditures. Because if you're going to save $250 monthly, let's say 1,000 people were to get that credit, the question is, what are they going to do with that money? Are they going to spend it? Are they going to take it to pay a loan? Are they going to save it? And hopefully the government is anticipating an increase in consumption for Dominicans and therefore collections of more VAT revenues.
All right, let's take a phone call. Are you there, caller? Yes.
Yes, my brother, I'm right there. Yeah. Well, I want to congratulate you, Matt, for always having Mr. Joshua on the radio station for Truth and Power. He's another man like Mr. Weeks, you understand? I always look at those two guys as superheroes, you know what I mean? No, I want to call on Mr. Skerritt because the budget business there. Mr. Skerritt, this is the cowboy man speaking to you again. Mr. Skerritt, I do not like that budget. Why? You're talking about income tax and you're talking about next year. Well, if you want the people pocket to full of money, why didn't you say from next month? You're saying from the first to another year. No, Mr. Skerritt, if money have to stay in our pocket, Mr. Skerritt, I'm already fooled already. And I'm a fool. You want to fool me? You fool him once, you fool him twice, you fool him 3 times. VAT. When you take out that and you take out income tax, I say, yes, you're doing something for the people. But where is the revenue now? What is going to bring the money back when you take out the income tax?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll just to give you a brief idea. You have to. You will spend more, huh? Caller, let's move on. You will spend more because you have more money in your hands. Also, before we get to the next segment as it relates to the custom duties, somebody says, I would like Joshua to give the public an idea of how much each Dominican owes based on the country's external debt. This would give the public an idea of the gloom and doom that's been thrown at them at this point in time.
Matt, at this hour, again, we do not have the estimates,
Yes.
so I cannot speak to the actual number as far as the national debt is concerned. But what I can speak to is what was presented yesterday, that Dominica's debt to GDP ratio is 99.6%, practically 100%. That far exceeds the regional benchmark of 60%. And why that is important? It is important because the government has to meet its financial obligations, both on a domestic level and on an international level. As you know, the government of Dominica has taken loans from Social Security, NBD, and monthly they have to service those loans. And given this high debt ratio, monies that would naturally, money that can be used in different sectors of the economy for stimulating the economy, now that money must be used to pay those debts. And of course, that has to be a point of concern. Why is that? As I said, why is that important, man? Because like you in your personal life, more debt you have is less you have available for other expenditures. And the government is no exception. So that we have to look at. And again, when you're looking at Dominica, we look at it from an absolute point of view in terms of what exists in Dominica, and you look at it from a relative point of view. Compare Dominica with St. Kitts, St. Lucia, and you would appreciate that we're way behind. Even the projection for Dominica's economic growth of 3% for the fiscal year 2026-2027 is way too little for Dominica to go anywhere, because Dominica is lagging significantly behind our sister nations. To really experience economic growth, we have to get 7 to 10% for a consistent period of about 5 years, because we're way behind. So to catch up.
So we're dragging.
We are dragging. We have been dragging. I mean, Dominica's economy has been limping for many years. And now that we're going into a period where the main source of revenue for the country is in trouble, clearly that has to be a matter of paramount importance to Dominicans.
Let's take a voice note. Hello, yes.
Hey, good afternoon, Miss Edward.
Yes.
I hope this is Miss Edward. You make me laugh. Scary arguing about scary arguing labor rights. Scary is fooling the labor rights, especially those that cannot. I will say those that have all their papers. Scary fooling them. Those that have their little PhD and they need to study more. Scary fooling them. Scary can fool a woman like me that went to St. Luke's School. Not at no time. At no time. Anybody that scary fooling is labor rights because they love him more than he loved them. So you see the budget, we just have to listen. His name is why is the man give him the name? Stupidity something. You understand? Because right now I don't feel he's stupid anymore. Right now he's a copycat. He's a copycat right now. Eric a kyon e leba right. If a kyon e moun ki ni l'esprit. Comme si yo pa ni papier la men yo. Impossible.
The voices of the people there. Let's see. Somebody else says, "Man, this is the 26th budget that this government is proposing to the people of Dominica. Is that right? Can you point to one of the previous 25 budgets that has propelled Dominica's economy in any way or form? Shape or form?" I say that to say this government could not do it in 25 previous budgets. What makes us rather believe that they can expand and grow the economy now? Give me a break. That's somebody's suggestion here. After 25 budget presentations, you think this will make a difference?
26.
That would be 26 because we had 25 before, so we added one.
Right. Oh, yes.
Yeah. Thank you. On the telephone, let's take another phone call. Are you there? Yes.
Yeah, good afternoon, Matt.
Good
I'd like to ask Mr. Francis' opinion on the specs of this. And this was created by Mr. Skerritt's CBI program, which made the Americans paranoid because of the type of people that they were giving passports with the citizenship thing. How does he think that in the next 5 years, the accumulative effect of that will be in Dominica? And the only aspect of it I thought of already is the young people graduating from high school who would like to go to meet their relatives in the U.S. to continue their education and get job opportunities. When that starts to back up in Dominica, what kind of effect he believes will happen? Thank you.
Well, Matt, we don't have to wait for 5 years. What we're experiencing right now is as a result of actions and inactions concerning the abuse of the CBI program, concerning the corruption in the CBI program, and concerning the allegations that Dominica's government is in the business of giving diplomatic passports in exchange for campaign funds. Now, any country that is involved in such action, whether it is real or fanciful, is a major concern to the international community. And it is factual that we allowed our passports to get into the hands of international rogues and fugitives, persons who create a threat to the international security architecture.
I was thinking, Joshua, earlier, now that we have been blocked from America, the UK, and soon the EU, where will our students turn to?
Well, you would have heard and you will continue to hear that the government declaring they are now giving scholarships for Dominican students to go to Guyana, something that we're supposed to have encouraged many years ago. And the reason why is because most young persons who go to the developed world, they do not come back. And our government made absolutely no provisions for them to come back. So in the past, in the 80s, under the Freedom Party regime, a recipient of a national scholarship had to sign a bond. And if that student failed to return, he or she had to pay the state back. Under this regime, once again, to seduce Dominicans to support them at the polls, they gave all the scholarships to allow people to go to the United States of America, at Grambling University, Monroe, etc. We are not aware that those students signed any bonds and they did not return. it would have made more sense for us to encourage our young people to go to University of the West Indies, University of Guyana, the Caribbean indigenous universities. So right now, as they would say, reality has struck in on this government, and they realize that our children will not be able to get to the United States of America. They're probably their preferred jurisdiction, and they are now declaring that scholarships will be available for our Dominican students to go to the University of Guyana. And that is the reality. But Matt, there is another consequence associated with this whole CBI situation.
But you mentioned UE. Now, are you aware that we owe UE about
Yes, of
$86
course.
million?
Yes, we are. We are owing a lot of money. So we are looking for a new area for us to milk. And that is how this government has operated. It goes around, it stains Dominica's reputation in different fields and different platforms. And then it looks for new areas to exploit. So right now they're talking about our people going to University of Guyana. But Matt, also you have to look at this from a visitor's point of view. The government has declared that Dominica has experienced an 18% increase in tourism arrivals. By no means and measure we should take that the tourist sector has grown. Understand there's a difference between arrivals and the entire sector. Now, the tourist arrivals, of course, we get some goodwill, some tax revenues from the arrivals, but stayover visitors, I would like to see the figures. And the fact that this government has been very tourist oriented, a tourist centric type of economic model, given that a lot of CBI proceeds have been used to build hotels. The international airport is aligned to the tourist sector, the marina, the cable car, and we haven't really felt the robust economic benefits that are supposed to come from those projects. And by now, every Dominican should understand why. We have had a major outflow, capital outflow. It is called capital flight from Dominica, not only by the employees on those large projects, such as on the construction of the international airport site, but we also have nationals from Haiti and Dominican Republic. When they work, we experience capital flight, an area that we have to examine in terms of how much money we are allowed to leave our jurisdiction. That also has contributed to where we are as far as our stagnant economic development is concerned.
Let's move to the custom duties. We were supposed to get there because I heard the government and its ministers, lauding the fact that there's going to be some movement at the customs in terms of duties.
Right. So, of course, the government has declared through the Minister of Finance, Dr. McIntyre, that he says impact of rising global prices will cause an extension of the value-added tax exemption and import duty waivers on a range of essential goods through the 31st of July 2026. Again, we have to give credit to the government for attempting to provide some kind of relief to our people, but it's just way too little. So as far as the import duties are concerned, he went on to say that those measures were introduced in response to persistent global economic uncertainties, including higher shipping costs and supply chain disruptions. I think I made mention of those, and those are likely to continue or even worsen over the next few months. So in that regard, the gentleman, that the Minister of Finance, has declared that after careful consideration, an efficient clearance system should facilitate commerce, not frustrate it. Your government is committed to modernizing the clearance system at the ports of entry and reducing cost and delays. This forms part of a broader strategy to improve the overall ease and cost of doing business in Dominica. Now, again, that sounds great, and that is important. We want to improve the ease of doing business, and we want to create a space where foreigners can be seduced and be encouraged to come to Dominica to do business, and that I could speak to later. But for now, effective 1st October 2026, the government is going to end the practice of compound duties. Excise tax and VAT will instead be calculated solely on the CIF. That is the value of the imported good. All right. That they're going to do. They're going to remove all these other import duties. So basically, they are saying that the cost of imports will be reduced. He says here, excise tax and VATs on imported goods are calculated not only on the cost, insurance, and freight value, you call that CIF, but also on other charges and taxes, including the customs services charge, environmental surcharge, or levy, import duty, and excise tax. So some of those taxes are going to be removed, and you're basically going to be taxed just on the CIF. That is the insurance and freight value. So basically, we expect to pay less on import duties. Now, why is that important, Matt? And exactly what are we importing? What are people going to benefit from this again?
Business.
And not just businesses, Matt. They are small businesses. A man bringing 2 boxes, yes, he's going to pay less import duty, but is that going to be significant? The people who stand to benefit more are the people who are bringing the containers, the big businesses.
That's what I was talking about.
And they are in the minority again. So again, you're seeing an inequality in the distribution of relief supplies for Dominica. The persons, the big boys, the big handlers, no fault of their own, because they themselves need to expand so they can employ more people, and we want them to expand. But the policy has not been directed to benefit ordinary Dominicans.
Now, you're making a point, Joshua, and somebody just texted me, and I sort of want to agree that we should play this song, because it does appear that the rich are the ones benefiting from this move there in that budget. Like the people, the beneficiaries of the 10% effective January 1, and the ministers, the president, the PSs, the CEOs of companies. The majority of employees getting a little bit of money to custom. The rising prices, that the point that Joshua was just making, of good and utilities. So those who are benefiting come from the 10% bracket.
Very, very less than 10%, Matt. Less than 10%.
You remember this that documentary? Who's benefiting? That's the big question, huh?
Solution to this pollution. Solution to this pollution. You got the solution to this pollution.
Somebody's asking, man, with all of this, how is government going to sustain paying salaries in the long run? That's a serious concern.
Well, yes, Matt. And from the onset of our discussion this afternoon, we asked that question because we anticipate a significant drop in revenues from the CBI program. And what we were hoping is that the government would present a budget to facilitate the growth of the economy, but that's not what we have here. What we have here is just a very woody budget, and a budget that has not provided the grounds for the growth of Dominica. Matt, one of the areas I want to highlight is the area of the employment tax rebate. Now, why would the government have a tax rebate for employers? Again, we credit to the government. It is hoping that with the tax rebate, we would see an expansion in the private sector. But again, that is way too little. First of all, small businesses are struggling. And what are the types of business? What are the nature of business that we have here per se? A lot of retail shops. We have a few persons involved in agro-processing, employees, possibly 1 or 2 persons. And the reality is the government has presented tax rebates. And it says, the government introduced a tax rebate to encourage businesses to create new jobs and expand employment opportunities. Again, the intention here is correct. The intention is good. It says the initiative had 2 clear objectives. 1, to support new and growing businesses. But there are so many factors affecting a business that this tax rebate is way too little. The environment for the development of businesses here in Dominica is not very conducive. Hence, the reason why some small businesses have had to exit from the market. Who are the people doing businesses in Dominica? If you look at Roseau, we have the little retail shops. It would be interesting if we carry out a survey to find out who are those doing retailing in Dominica.
Well, I carried a survey some time ago, and I think about maybe 40% of the shops in Roseau belongs to the Chinese.
Yeah, and and Matt, that takes us to another issue. They belong to the Chinese. Most of them, or a lot of them, are foreigners.
They're owned by local Dominicans, but the business itself.
Yeah, but Matt, mark you, a number of those properties in Roseau are owned by the Chinese. And that is another issue of concern.
So we're even losing all the business in Roseau.
But Matt, we are losing Dominica. We are losing Dominica. How many ordinary Dominicans can purchase 3,000 square feet of land in Roseau? Right now, we are looking at a square foot for $300 to $400. Ordinary people cannot afford a portion of land in Roseau. So the highest bidder gets
rent.
And the rent is another issue.
$5,000.
But to me, the rent, is a lesser issue for me. One of the areas, Dominicans, when it comes to freeholds and estates and ownership of properties, Dominica was number one in the region, meaning that you had more Dominicans with certificate of titles in terms of 1,000 per 10,000 or 1 per 1,000 people in the entire region. But that is changing. The reason is because people are under financial pressure, and when their loved ones are sick, they're looking for funding, and sometimes they have to sell their property. And because there is a massive brain drain, some Dominicans have to wash their hands on Dominica, so their inheritance are being sold. Yeah, a lot of Dominicans saying, well, I'll come to visit, I'll come to World Music Creole Festival, but I have no use for Dominica.
I hear that all the time. Hello, talk to me on the telephone. Yes, are you there, caller?
Yeah, I'm there. What's up? Greetings, Dominica. I just want to tell Fafa, c'est pas moi vers Saint-Luc, scary passa Kione. But anyway, it just doesn't make sense. Like listening to you all. You have no money, no material exporting out of Dominica, so money is not coming in. I mean, like I said before, St. Luke's is the highest level of education, but my teachers put common sense in my head. Common sense. Only the laborites he can fool, and people like Fafa said, with PhD and doctorate. It's sad that this prime minister is fooling them. They can't even stand for Dominica, and they think that they're exempt from feeling the wrath of what is to come. They're not going to be exempt from that. And even if the Chinese have all the stores, if the people don't have money, they cannot support the Chinese. So the Chinese eventually going to feel the strain of it. But at least some of us overseas can send virus and things for our people. It's sad. It's sad what's going on. You cannot build an economy on taxes. The country cannot survive on taking out taxes. The police officers have to get paid. The nurses have to get paid. The teachers have to get paid. The civil service have to get paid. That Dominica, mawe wenzo. Que saka vini asu Dominic, si so pa mette tête so. En haut. Zon ki commence mawe wenzo. Kas male ka vini asu Dominic. E zo ka dubut pou yon nom instead of dubut avec pays ya. I'm listening to you.
All right, my brother, thank you. Only the poor man I feel it. Only the poor man.
There has to be a solution. Yeah.
From a personal perspective, have the government managed and reinvested CBI funds correctly? I'll be in Dominica working for a reasonable and acceptable salary. There are many like myself, no manufacturing, so more skilled persons can stay and work for a decent salary and stay to build Dominica. I don't think you have a choice at this time. The good paying jobs are out there. But even those who have the shops, cannot make money now because when the DLP is giving everything free, imagine, for the Christmas, the local merchants complain, then that they can sell ham or turkey. Giving people free houses, less loans at the bank institutions. I suspect a lot of Dominicans are now beginning to see the truth, huh?
Yeah,
The reality. Yes.
Well, Matt, they say if you don't see it, you will feel it, and many Dominicans are feeling it right now. I mean, Matt, think about it. Somebody earns $2,000 monthly. He or she has a mortgage. 1,200 goes towards that mortgage. It means that $800 left as disposable income. Now, I'm not looking at gross income. I'm looking at disposable income of $2,000, a mortgage of $1,200, a balance of $800. From that $800, one has to pay utility bills, electricity. And interestingly, Matt, did you hear anything about geothermal in that budget address?
I didn't hear.
But while you're on that point, quickly, let me just make mention of some rhetoric that this government.
Anything in there for
put out
agriculture?
there.
We have
Yes,
another time?
yes, we have agriculture. We have some rebate that and some insurance, crop insurance that the government spoke about. But there is a point which I took note when I just started reading this material. I have not read everything, but I think I came across a point where the Minister of Finance spoke about making Dominica 100% reliant on renewable energy, and I found that to be very laughable. Because it took us 16 years to put together a geothermal plant to produce 10,000 megawatts of energy, half of what the country demands.
16 years.
16 years, and that has not been gotten right. And you're talking about by 2030,
we're still exploring
to move away from diesel, which means that in 4 years' time, when I saw that, I laughed because for a moment I felt that whoever put that budget address together clearly was not thinking. I'm just looking for that point, but I will get back to it, Matt. Let's go quickly to the area you wanted to hear about agriculture. Is that correct? But we're talking about the rebate for employers. Of course, the government is well intent as far as trying to stimulate the private sector. But as I stated, unfortunately, because generally the economic situation in Dominica is grim, employers are not too keen on expanding their labor force, and therefore the employment tax rebate, as has happened, appears to be falling on its face. It was there already. It appears not to be working, and there has been an extension of it. That is just a means of expanding or growing the private sector. But let's go to agriculture quickly. What did the Minister of Finance have to say about agriculture? Again, we're not going to read everything. We just want to see what he has presented. Usual talk about spending money in agriculture. We have been hearing that. Again, here it is, agriculture, food security and value addition. That is the caption as far as agriculture is concerned. I just want to get to the point where he says that, Mr. Speaker, to protect these major investments this year, government would take an additional step by procuring crop insurance valued at $1.5 million. This insurance facility will provide liquidity for government to assist farmers in the event of a climatic disaster. This will help protect farmers and their families from climate risk. This insurance facility will be fully financed by the government at no cost to the farmers. It'll be interesting to hear the farmers on that issue. Of course, that again is an insurance facility for farmers to benefit in the event of a hurricane or any natural disaster that would cause destruction of their crop supply. Beyond that, there appears to be nothing new for farmers. Let's hear what he had to say. From July 2017 to June 2026, government invested $252.5 million in agriculture, livestock, fisheries, agricultural infrastructure, and food security. Over the last 12 months, approximately 830 acres of priority crops were established, with projected production of 17.9 million pounds of marketable produce valued at more than EC 44.7 million. Those figures represent potential farm income, more local food in shops and markets, and a larger domestic buffer when shipping or overseas supply is disrupted. But let's just stick a point here. He spoke about more local supplies on our shelves. But when you go to certain supermarkets, you still get beets from abroad, carrots imported. And isn't that a shame? This is a country under the Freedom Party regime and the United Workers Party regime where we boasted that we would be the food basket for the region. And today we import vegetables. It says it all. And again,
There's a serious imbalance of trade there.
yeah, there is. And had this government been visionary, we certainly would have made agriculture a greater priority, especially in light of food security, which has taken greater prominence on the international stage in view of the wars and the changes in geopolitics. And a small country like Dominica, blessed with rich soils, one would think that the government would allocate even more funding for agriculture. Of course, this government has stated that by 2030, we would expect a revenue of $700 million from agriculture. We are nowhere close. We are absolutely nowhere close. We have not even got into $200 million.
Just on a point of correction, Joshua, you said earlier 10,000 megawatts. No, it's 10 megawatts.
10 megawatts, sorry. Yeah, 10 megawatts. Sorry, my apologies. Yes, 10
Because
megawatts.
With 10,000 megawatts, we'd be able to supply the
Yes,
entire Caribbean.
that is
Someone
correct.
is making that point.
Yeah, yes. I appreciate that. Yeah, I was just, again, punching numbers and crunching numbers, from an accounting point of view.
So
So,
it's 10
I was
megawatts,
thinking
not
of money.
10,000.
Yes, 10 megawatts. Sorry, my apologies. Yeah, so we need about 20 megawatts and we're producing, we're supposed to produce just 10 megawatts and we have not gotten it right. And yet we are talking about renewable energy.
And millions invested in it.
Millions. It took 16 years. And yet the government is saying in 4 years' time, we'll be solely be reliant on renewable energy. So that is laughable. I want to read that stuff. Now, Matt, another point that we may want to pay attention to is
We don't have too much time, huh?
yeah, is in
Okay,
respect to
I'm
the CBI. I mean, that is a big topic here because we have been so reliant on the CBI. We thought that the budget address will talk more about CBI.
Mhm.
And maybe when the estimates are given over the next few days, we will learn more as far as what did we earn from the CBI for the last fiscal year and what is the projection for CBI revenue for the next fiscal year. That is important because now we are speculating that revenue from the CBI is expected to drop in view of the European Union's decision asking us to phase out our CBI program by the 1st of June 2028. Again, that is speculative. We would like to see what are the estimates as far as revenue and also to get some auditing report.
It looks gloomy.
Yeah, well, it looks gloomy and we are not being unreasonable in getting to a conclusion. But Matt, really, when you think of the CBI, it's really a big issue for Dominica. It's really big. Right now, people are having difficulties to go and visit their family in the United States of America. And there are moves to make the ban permanent, meaning that we'll not be able to get a visa, we'll not be able to visit our friends. That is big. And of course, in time to come, we will not be able to go to the European
and
Union.
the bond is big, is not big. It's 20,000 US.
Yeah, that is major.
How many people can afford that 20,000 US?
Tell me about it. In EC, you're looking at about 52,000 EC dollars. I mean, Matt, that is big. So really, when we look down the road, we are seeing a dark alley. We are walking in a very dark corridor. We are adrift on a ship that appears to be sinking. And Dominicans really have to take their country seriously. We really have to pay attention to what's happening around us. And the only solution is to cause a change of government.
I was about to ask, do you think a change of government will bring some realities in
Well, not just a change of government. We have to we must have a group of people who are prepared to take the country into a different direction. And the vision I have for Dominica really is simple: green and clean Dominica. The world is moving into an organic direction. Leaders have noticed that they have caused irreversible damage to the environment and they want to reverse those. In certain situations they can't. The next big thing in the world is the water. It is already, it's water. Survival. Water is life. Dominica has water in abundance.
Nothing in the budget?
I did not see anything about water resources, management of water resources.
That's the next goal.
It is the goal. It was always the goal, but we took it for granted because some of us had it in abundance. But more and more countries are under desertification, reduction in drinking water, and they will be looking. I mean, when you look at the Middle East, you'll appreciate and understand the value of fresh drinking water.
Let's take a phone call. Are you there, caller? Sorry about that. Are you there?
Matt, I just wanted to
Please.
remind us that President Chavez handed over a working coffee plant. I don't think anybody drank one cup of coffee from that. He handed over an abattoir. That also failed. Both of those are in agriculture. What else, Matt? Enough said. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
There is mention of the abattoir and some other stuff on the agriculture. But again, we will get more when the estimates are given. But really, it's a disappointment when we read what the Minister of Finance had to say about agriculture. It's really, really a disappointment. Food security.
And sometimes we miss the
Yeah.
point that even the Martinique and Guadeloupe, which we depend on, most of us, remember it comes on the EU, so a lot of things might change with the EU, putting restrictions.
Yeah, well, it may, but the opportunity has always existed. I think it was the deceased Rosie Douglas, God bless his soul, who had that vision that Dominica could become the food basket for Guadeloupe and Martinique departments of France and the United
Or you see the EU
European
putting
Union.
more restrictions. So
Maybe not. But as far as the sale of our produce, the vision has to be Dominica getting involved in more organic farming and producing foods for our neighbors, becoming that real food basket. We are supposed to invest in the boats to transport our farm produce.
where this boats, Joshua?
Well, again, it's a fact that this government never really made agriculture a priority. And as I stated earlier, it's not just about food production and food security and exports, but survival of the rural economies. I personally think that's a big issue in Dominica because Matt is becoming more glaring to us that our rural economies are dead. Matt, you used to go to Castibus right on weekends and go down to Marigot, take a lime. But what we're having in those communities right now is depopulation.
On the telephone, are you there, caller? Quickly. Yes?
Mr. Francis in the studio.
Yes.
Yes, clear about, the budget this year, the government has a responsibility every year to present an annual income expenditure to the country. And when they quote the amount of money that is in the budget, it's not money they have in the treasury, it's money that they are hoping to raise from various areas and how it's going to be spent. And of course, you see the government has, or they try their utmost now because they are in some kind of election kind of atmosphere or feeling, and therefore they want to see how they can continue to ride their way through into government, and therefore all of these goodies we're talking about is being mentioned. But these have been mentioned before, and the people have not felt the real impact of the budget for the last 26 years. And sometimes what you hear and what you read in the minister's statement is not really done in the estimates. You have to look for it in the estimates, and it's not there sometimes. It's just a matter of words to create some excitement. But in terms of the nitty-gritty in the estimates, sometimes it's not there. And sometimes what happens is they quote an amount, and they are able to raise very little in that area. And I remember there was an estimate that they have some years ago, and they were only able to spend maybe about $16 or so million, and they're trying to raise over 40 million or so in that area. So therefore, the country have not seen the kind of impact they expected, and what the warning we have gotten from the European Union, we have not seen a situation to prepare the country for that, to call into action the country's human resource, and to see how we can put things together in terms of agriculture or water and so forth. I heard you all mention about the business in Roseau. Most of the businesses in Roseau are owned by the Chinese. There was a time in Dominica, a lot of the businesses were indigenous businesses in Roseau. And I remember when I traveled abroad in St. Kitts and these places, a lot of their businesses belonged to foreigners. And in Dominica, when they come here, they were kind of amazed to see most of our businesses were locals. And Jean-François is right. But in terms of land, a number of persons were looking to raise financial monies to assist their families, assist their situation, selling their properties and so on. And it is falling in the hands of foreigners. And if you look at Roseau, I mean, once a piece of land in Roseau, a plot of land is for sale, you see the Chinese moving in there and buying it, and they're quickly able to build, and they're building very fast in Roseau. And if you're not careful, Roseau will become really a Chinatown and so on. So this government for the past 26 years have not really created the kind of atmosphere in the economy. I mean, now you talk about help for the or some kind of incentive for the private sector. I mean, you cannot kill something, and when you kill it, then you, after all these years, now you're trying to see how you can put something into their lifestyle, into the live stream, which is not going to work, and so on. So really, I mean, I know for your time is a bit tight here, so I'm trying to be quick, and so. I mean, agriculture and tourism and all of these are just not the kind of thing. And we've always said the CBI would have been icing on the cake, but you cannot ignore your homegrown strategy for the economy. And that's what we have done as a government for the last couple of years. And we find ourselves today losing that source of income. Quickly, Matt, I mean, we bought oil from Venezuela. We paid them 60% upfront and 40% went to us as a loan. We have not seen where that loan went, and nobody's saying what that loan has been. And when Hurricane Maria struck, the Venezuelans still came around and they forgave that debt. But up now, we cannot get a reply as to where that money went. You go to St. Kitts, you go to St. Lucia, you go to Grenada, you feel the impact of the CBI. Although it has some questionable issues, but in Dominica, it's just not there. If the government had taken some of the CBI money and placed it at the aid bank at a very low interest rate for private sector to borrow, then there'd be a better movement in the economy. I remember the Prime Minister said after they built his hotel in Lale Coco, he said that they should come to him. Oh, why do they have to come to you for help? We want help. Make the money available at the aid bank at a low interest rate, and let people go in and borrow. We know all of these red tape, remove that and let them borrow. So we create some movement in the economy, but that was not done, and that's what we admire. So as we get the estimate, we'll study the estimate and we'll make further comments on it, and we'll ask the Dominican people themselves to be aware of what is happening, because at the end of the day, the problem is this. I was at the credit union yesterday, and somebody came in there, a young guy came in, he said, can you imagine you can't pay your debt, not your debt, no, your bills on your salaries. And if you can't pay your bill on your salary, it means you're poor. You have to take from your account or loan to pay your bill. Something is just run in this country, and it is true. Thank you so much.
Right, thank you very much. I just somebody just sent me a clip I want to kind of wrap up with, remembering the late Guruji Douglas and his sentiments as it relates to the selling of passports. Let's go again.
So what we are saying is the opportunities are there now for clean government, for responsible government, for transparent government. And in that kind of situation, therefore, we as poor as we may be, we have no fear.
So there are no more Dominican passports for sale for $500?
No, that's how we look at it. It used to be $50,000 to the treasury, and the rest of the money went to the agent. So if somebody wanted a new name, then you buy a passport, you do the treasury $50,000, the agent would say $100,000, and they keep the rest. That's how it was.
Because the accusations were that your country was allowing in Soviet mafia, drug dealers.
Well, when they were selling passports like hot bread or hot cake, they were selling passports, and that led to criminals taking advantage of it. That's why we have told the Americans, give us some training. Because the minister, when he was accused, the former minister of finance, Mr. Timothy, when he was accused of letting in Christopher's case, he said he's only a white-collar criminal, so what? That's what he said to the world. So I mean, the man disgraced our country. And when this government moved to arrest some people who had all kinds of privileges, illegal privileges in the customs, after we got elected and they were arrested, he went and paid the bill. So that he felt that really the Dominican was an estate that his father or somebody in family left for him in the will. And all this kind of nonsense has been now stopped. And we are a transparent country, we are a proud country, and we're looking for the cooperation of the outside world to help us build the country, because the country, in terms of ecotourism, in terms of its natural environment, it's good. The Sainsbury's, the big supermarket chain in Britain, came down to Dominica a month ago, and they have identified Dominica as an area where organic farming can be a major component because of the natural nature of the country. The natural beauty is one of the few islands or countries in the world where you can drive your car along the road, stop anywhere and go and drink water without worrying about pollution. That is the kind of country that we have.
So on your tour right now, what kind of portrait or image of Dominica are you trying to portray? What would you like the people to remember the country for?
I want people to remember the country as a country that is under economic distress. We're not going to deny that. But a country with great potential. And if we set the parameters right, if we set the enabling requisites that Dominica can develop, and everybody can share in the prosperity of our country as a democratic, small as we are, and we are much bigger than many islands in the Caribbean, except Trinidad, Jamaica, and Guyana. And among the English-speaking Caribbean, we're bigger than Barbados, we're bigger than Antigua, we're bigger than St. Vincent, we're bigger than St. Lucia, we're bigger than most of the other islands, St. Thomas and Croix.
And we are confident that if we can take the road of information technology and really build the information technology center and continue to receive the cooperation of friendly governments and the cooperation of friendly institutions like York University tomorrow, for example, like New Orleans University and many others who can take on the example of the medical school in Dominica, which was set up 20 years ago. Last month, 90% of the owner's interest in that school was sold for 200 million US dollars to sold for. And the new owners want to invest right now in a hospital where we could utilize not just the top level qualified people at the school, but we could utilize the environment, we could utilize the hot springs, the sulfur springs, and all the natural facilities that allow that woman to live for 125 years. As a neighbor next door celebrated the 119th birthday 2 months ago. So you can see there's something about Dominica that is good.
Well, you see, I wonder what Rosie would be saying today. A stark reminder.
I want to comment.
You want to comment on what you got?
Well, yeah, Matt. I mean, I listened to the late legend Rosie Douglas, and he said that he wants Dominica to be known as a transparent country. The gentleman must be rolling in his grave right now because
we have sold out.
We have sold out in many respects. Matt, I just want to make mention of the flagship projects we have in Dominica because the government has used those projects as weapons against the opposition as far as its claim that Dominica is on the next stage of development. Of course, that is remote from the truth. The reality, as far as CBI is concerned, the government of Dominica has entered into contractual arrangements with range development as far as the marina is concerned, with MMCE as far as the construction of the international airport is concerned, and we have ABL Holding for the cable car project. And we are not aware that none of those contracts have been under the purview or oversight of Parliament. And from my understanding, those contracts were not even discussed at a cabinet level. And then we're hearing about sweetheart deals. It's been alleged that the project, the CBI project, the construction of the hotel in the valley, involves 700 passports, where 400 for the financing of the construction of the project, and the other 300 passports are for the players and actors.
You're joking.
Now, why is that is important? As we speak, there is a matter before the court to force the government hands to disclose the nature of the contract that it has with MMC as far as social housing, the construction of the wellness centers, and now the construction of the international airport. And because we have not had any sight of those contract arrangements, and we hope that the court rules in favor of the claimants, and that we as Dominicans will finally see the nature of the contracts that have been established between the government of Dominica and those CBI agents. Now we are looking at many CBI agents who are foreigners. So basically we have put our birthright in the hands of those foreigners. They have made millions of dollars. They have become wealthy, and the deals are sweetheart deals. And it's just a few ministers of government who have benefited from those contractual arrangements. They are personal benefits.
And Rosie also made a point that, I don't know if you're on the line, he spoke about Ross University and his hopes with Ross University.
Well,
where's Ross?
Yeah, dead as far as Dominica is concerned. And now we have a financial graveyard in Portsmouth, an area that was once buoyant, an area that had hope for Dominica. At one time, people felt that Portsmouth was on course to become the main city, the main capital in Dominica. Now we have a Portsmouth that has become financially and economically dead. You can speak to the small businesses up there. There are quite a number of house owners, property owners who have left Dominica and left their buildings into ruin. So we have a really bad situation in Dominica as far as the CBI is concerned, Matt. Because, Matt, I don't know if you have heard the cable car project as an example. There's speculation that the contract that the government has with ABL Holding really is favored highly to the CBI developer. I think Gregor Nassif's letter of 16th of June 2026 addressed to the Prime Minister mentions some of those items.
Yes, and of course he'll be having a news conference shortly And a lot more will be exposed, as I can say. I can't tell you the date, but very soon.
Right. And Matt, from my understanding, this ABL holding company responsible for the cable car, the ultimate owner of that company, the ultimate beneficial owner is an Indian who is the CEO of CS Global Partners Company. Now, that is a CBI agent which operates in St. Kitts, in Portugal, several European countries, in St. Lucia. It's huge. You know, we have been talking about MMCE, but this guy has been operating under the radar in Dominica. This, what's his name? Bat something, whatever his name is, this Indian guy. And my understanding that this Indian guy, I will refer to him as the Indian guy, is the one who facilitated the vaccines, the COVID vaccines from India. It wasn't Modi, it wasn't from the government. This guy is big, he's huge. And he has a relationship with certain
individuals
within the government circle. And he takes care of them financially. That is where the CBI program has found itself, where a few actors and players have used the program corruptly to enrich themselves, enrich their families, and to boast that the CBI proceeds have been used for social housing. No doubt that we have had CBI proceeds used for social housing, now the airport and some other projects in Dominica, but we cannot not face the reality. We are where we are today in regards to the visa restrictions in the United States and the situation with the European Union because of corruption, because of a lack of transparency.
Let's take on the final voice note for the afternoon, and let's do this.
I tell all you, those words were like a curse on Dominica, you know. If not CBI, then what? That's not, boy, I don't know. That is just uncomprehendable. What went in the Prime Minister head to even make that statement? And not just make the statement, you know, maintain the action, the actions being in the statement, you know. And no, everybody in a rush, agriculture, tourism. We had all the money we wanted to boost agriculture and tourism, and we squandered the money, we waste the money, we use the money, but boy.
Oh, we have to wrap it up, Dominica. A lot has been exposed. I suspect the next few days we'll hear a lot more. Joshua Francis, the final words are yours.
Yes, Matt. I want to say that the only salvation that can come to Dominica right now is a change of government. And it's urgent. I know that. And not just a change of government, but a change in direction, because the direction that Dominica is taking is to go down a precipice, to go into the abyss, a direction that will take us to the depths of the ocean. And for us to salvage Dominica, we must change the government and we must change the direction. We must change our economic policies. We must change our method of governance. We have to take back integrity in governance in Dominica and public life, because for now, we are not in a good place. The economy is in ruins, and our leaders, the government, the leaders in the government, they are politically and intellectually exhausted, and they are bankrupt as far as innovation is concerned. And the only hope for Dominica is to cause a change of government. And Matt, just as a point of correction, I think earlier I spoke about this government declaring that by 2030 we will generate $700 million from agriculture. Well, I may have said 2040, but actually it's 2030. I just wanted to correct that. But that's a brain mat that is working. You know, I think the Prime Minister of Japan says that she sleeps 3 hours a night. I'm not far away from that, you know, having to deal with law and...
Well, go easy on that one. Go easy on that one.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but thank you, Matt, and thank you to our listeners. And we will continue to have those kinds of discussions to cause every Dominican to benefit and to be enlightened and to see light, to bring a much needed change in Dominica.
I've got to go, huh? Tomorrow we'll be back. Tomorrow we'll have Jerry Brisbane. Long time, huh? We'll go back to Dave Watch for a while, but tomorrow morning we'll have an open line. And next Monday for sure, we'll be looking for your support as it relates to getting some help for the confirmation process. So please, if you have not confirmed, make sure you do so today, okay? There'll be a drive to help assist people go confirm. We'll do that on Monday. So if you can help, do help, huh? I'm gone for the afternoon.
The Trinidad in her day of sailing, she was a friend to one and all. She never once ever hesitated to answer all SOS calls. And yes, but she always did her best to help out those in distress. Now it's so sad to see she's in difficulties. Though she helped share, some of them share, and some Captain, the ship is sinking. Captain, the seas are rough. We got some almost empty, no electricity. We all pressure in the low. Shall we abandon ship, or shall we sit on it and perish slow? We don't know. We don't know. Captain, you tell me what to do. Whoa. If only there was something I could have done to restore the credibility of this beautiful vessel. Money's no problem. Now there's a lot of fingers pointing, suspicion running strong. To be blamed for all her failures, who's to be blamed for doing her wrong? Now please remember I'm warning you, but at the end she had said no, to hold the keys to her fault, so we know who's at fault. Now it's up to you, it's up to me to make her worthy to fall on the sea. Captain, the ship is sinking. Captain, seas are rough, oh yes. We got some almost empty, no electricity. We oil pressure in the low. Shall we abandon ship, or shall we stay on it and perish slow? We don't know. We don't know. Captain, you tell me what to do. We don't know. We don't know. Captain, you tell me what to do. We don't know. We don't know. You tell me. We don't know. We don't know. Oh gosh, we don't know. When we turn to the world back for help, I only know. We don't know. We don't know. Somebody put an application to the World Bank. How do we make them have to do the repair? We don't know. We don't know. We don't know. Sugar, don't let
Sugar, don't get so mad. Please let me explain. If you see me